In a town built on glamour, grace, and carefully curated images, few stories hit harder than when two of Hollywood's most admired stars find themselves on opposite sides of a headline-making fallout. It wasn't supposed to be like this. When fans first heard that Justin Baldoni and Blake Lively were collaborating on a powerful, purpose-driven film, the excitement was electric. Both were known not just for their talent but for their warmth. Their reputations were built on kindness, connection, and conscious storytelling. This was the project that on paper seemed destined for awards and admiration. Until it all began to unravel. What followed wasn't just a creative difference. It wasn't a scheduling conflict or a quiet departure, it became something bigger. A slow, complex breakdown of trust, communication, and public perception. A behind-the-scenes battle that soon spilled out into court filings, YouTube subpoenas, and viral online debates. And at the heart of it all, two very different visions of what it means to create and control a story. As rumors spread, the internet lit up. Small content creators started piecing together timelines, legal documents surfaced, allegations of creative control issues turned into whispered accusations of censorship. Blake's legal team was accused of targeting YouTubers for simply having an opinion. Meanwhile, Justin said nothing, no interviews, no tweets, no statements, just silence. And in Hollywood, silence is often louder than words. The public was left to fill in the gaps. Was Blake protecting her truth or silencing others? Was Justin hurt or just being strategic? Were they both victims of a system that devours its own or architects of their own undoing? The line between professionalism and personal vendetta blurred. And soon it became clear this wasn't just a story about a movie that didn't get made. It was a mirror reflecting something much deeper about fame, power, and the fragile line between privacy and public narrative. This is not a hit piece. It's not gossip. This is the full, nuanced, and respectful breakdown of what happened when two creative forces collided, and the internet, the courts, and the fans were all pulled into the aftermath. A feud that quietly became one of the most toxic and revealing in modern Hollywood. From the first spark of collaboration to the final flicker of fallout, we're diving deep into the events, the missteps, the unanswered questions, and the ripple effects that are still unfolding. Because what happened between Justin Baldoni and Blake Lively isn't just Hollywood drama, it's a case study in what happens when the spotlight turns inward. Hollywood is no stranger to feuds, but every once in a while a clash unfolds that captures not just headlines but hearts. When fans first heard whispers of tension between actor-director Justin Baldoni and beloved actress Blake Lively, many were skeptical. After all, both had maintained a reputation for kindness, compassion, and poise in an industry known for ego-driven outbursts. But behind the scenes, what started as a collaborative dream quickly morphed into one of the most talked about feuds in modern Hollywood, one where personalities clashed, egos bruised, and private frustrations spilled into public view. It all began in early 2024 when Justin Baldoni, known for his directorial work on emotionally powerful films like 5 Feet Apart and Clouds, had approached Blake Lively for a major lead role in a heartfelt drama under his new production house. Sources close to the deal described it as a match made in creative heaven. Justin admired Blake's versatility and star power, while Blake respected Justin's commitment to telling meaningful, purpose-driven stories. But sometimes mutual admiration isn't enough to keep two powerful visions from clashing. The early development stages were reportedly smooth. Scripts were exchanged, Zoom meetings took place, and contracts began to move through legal channels. The film, still unnamed at that point, was being built around a strong, emotionally complex female character, one that Blake was eager to explore. But as creative sessions continued, Blake allegedly grew concerned about the messaging and tone of the film, while Justin sought to emphasize emotional resilience through spiritual overtones and inspirational monologues. Blake reportedly pushed for a more grounded, gritty realism. That creative difference would become the first crack in a professional relationship that had started with so much promise. According to insiders, Blake started requesting script rewrites, dozens of them. She wanted her character to have less preaching and more power, while Justin, who has always leaned heavily on emotional optimism, held his ground. He believed in a vision where pain was met with purpose and light always emerged from darkness. To him, changing the soul of the story meant compromising everything. What followed were weeks of behind-the-scenes tension. Schedules were missed, writers were brought in and out, and PR teams reportedly began prepping for creative differences statements just in case. Eventually, Blake stepped away from the project entirely, citing a conflict in vision. At the time, her departure was presented as mutual and amicable, but things didn't stay quiet for long. Not long after Blake's exit, Justin took to a podcast interview and made subtle comments about the difficulty of working with certain stars who want to be producers, directors, and screenwriters all at once, while he never mentioned Blake by name. The timing and context left little doubt in people's minds. Hollywood observers connected the dots quickly, and the press did the rest. Blake, usually reserved on these matters, remained silent. But silence in Hollywood can speak volumes. And in a town fueled by rumors and Instagram stories, it wasn't long before speculation grew into full-blown narratives about betrayal, artistic clashes, and damaged friendships. Yet as heated as things had become behind the scenes, neither party had truly broken their silence in a way that confirmed or denied the feud. That would soon change, and it would all begin with a single court filing if the creative fallout between Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni had stayed private. It might have remained just another Hollywood what could have been story. But what came next turned simmering tension into a full-blown feud. When legal paperwork hit the court system and Blake's name was suddenly attached to a series of unexpected subpoenas and legal maneuvers that no one in the public saw coming, the spark, a growing number of content creators, bloggers, and commentary channels had begun covering the behind-the-scenes drama, many of them speculating on what exactly had gone wrong between Blake and Justin. Some creators even began citing anonymous industry sources, suggesting that more than creative differences had occurred, hinting at disagreements over control rights and royalties. At first, the coverage was scattered and speculative, but it gained momentum fast. Audiences were fascinated by the quiet unraveling of what seemed like a golden collaboration. And in an era where social media creators often shape the public narrative faster than traditional media can catch up, it wasn't long before Blake Lively's legal team stepped in with force. Multiple YouTubers and podcast hosts were hit with subpoenas requesting communication sources and even metadata from videos and posts discussing the Blake-Justin rift. While the official reason listed was to investigate potential defamation and breach of confidential information, it was quickly interpreted by many as a targeted legal fishing expedition, a move to control the narrative by scrutinizing those who were reporting on it. That's when Justin Baldoni's name re-emerged, not from a legal filing of his own, but through the whispers surrounding these subpoenas. Some creators speculated that Justin might be indirectly connected to the investigation, while others claimed he had nothing to do with it and was just watching the events unfold. Like the rest of the public, Justin himself remained completely silent. No statements, no interviews, no legal filings. Blake's team, on the other hand, insisted their actions were strictly about protecting privacy and accuracy, denying any attempt to stifle free commentary. But that didn't stop a major backlash from rising. Many creators felt threatened, accusing Blake's legal advisors of overreach and intimidation. Suddenly, the story wasn't just about a feud between two stars, it was about the balance between celebrity privacy and online free speech. It was around this time that a particularly viral YouTube video broke through the noise. A creator with a small channel released a satirical but emotionally charged piece titled "Justin Baldoni vs. Blake Lively: When Hollywood Perfection Cracks." It wasn't malicious. In fact, it was respectful and reflective, but still critical of how the situation was unfolding. To everyone's surprise, that small creator was also subpoenaed. That moment hit a nerve across the internet. Bigger YouTubers began calling out what they saw as an imbalance of power. And suddenly Blake found herself at the center of a debate she may never have wanted to be part of. Public opinion started to shift. Some questioned whether her legal response was proportionate or even necessary. Meanwhile, Justin's quiet demeanor gave rise to a wave of sympathy. Though many acknowledged that both sides had their reasons, Justin's absence from the courtroom drama allowed him to emerge, at least in the public's eyes, as the more composed and reserved party. Creators and fans began commenting that Baldoni's silence is speaking louder than Blake's lawyers, and still neither of them directly addressed one another. Behind the scenes, however, legal professionals began weighing in. Multiple experts noted that the strategy being used, subpoenaing creators rather than filing defamation suits, was unusual, especially since many of the statements being scrutinized were based on opinion, not provable fact. This led to a new question: was the move really about justice or about control? It became more than a feud. It became a cultural moment. Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni, both champions of empathy in their own ways, had become the centerpieces of a public clash about storytelling, reputation, and the consequences of public speculation. And while lawsuits can be filed and projects can fall apart, what remained hanging in the air was something even more powerful: the question of who controls a story once it's already been told. As the legal subpoenas spread across the creator community and commentary heated up, the Blake Lively vs. Justin Baldoni feud entered its most unpredictable phase, the war for public perception. What started as a creative disagreement and morphed into a quiet legal storm now became a full-blown PR crisis, one that neither camp seemed ready for. And in Hollywood, once the public turns the spotlight on how you handle the spotlight, it's hard to come back unscathed. Initially, Blake's team took a confident, polished approach. Press statements were carefully worded, focused on misinformation control, and framed her actions as necessary for protecting her family, career, and reputation. But the tone didn't land well online. Fans began questioning why a Hollywood A-lister was going after independent YouTubers, many of whom had small followings and were simply speculating based on publicly available information. To make matters worse, one of the content creators who received a subpoena released a heartfelt video describing the emotional toll of being legally targeted. The video quickly went viral, receiving support from larger creators and sparking trending hashtags like #creators-not-criminals and #let them speak. Overnight, the narrative flipped. Blake Lively, once known for her relatable charm and wit, was now being portrayed by some corners of the internet as overly litigious and even disconnected from the very public that had supported her career for over a decade. Meanwhile, Justin Baldoni continued to say nothing, not a single tweet, no interviews, no cryptic Instagram captions. This silence, intentional or not, created a vacuum, and in that silence, people projected meaning. Fans began seeing Justin as the quiet creative who had been burned, while Blake was painted as the powerful star who didn't like how the story was being told. But perception is never simple in Hollywood. Others came to Blake's defense, noting that women in the industry often face harsher scrutiny, and her response might have been motivated by a need to protect her integrity in an industry still deeply judgmental and male-dominated. They argued that Blake was well within her rights to protect her privacy and to push back against what she saw as false narratives. Still, the damage was spreading. PR insiders reportedly advised both parties to reframe the conversation. Justin was encouraged to speak out to correct misinterpretations of his role in the situation. Blake's advisors reportedly considered a sit-down interview to humanize her side of the story. Neither happened. And with both stars maintaining their silence, the internet filled the gap with more speculation, theories, and opinion pieces. Then came the media frenzy. Major outlets began digging deeper. TMZ, Variety, The Hollywood Reporter all started publishing timeline pieces trying to decode the feud. Some obtained internal documents from the production project that started it. Others interviewed former team members and assistants. Soon the headlines were everywhere: Blake and Baldoni when collaboration turns cold, subpoena storm in Tinseltown. Is this the new normal? Hollywood's kindest faces at war. What went wrong? Every article added a layer, every blog post brought a new theory. Public trust in both stars took a hit, even as their loyal fans defended them with passion. The tragedy here wasn't just the crumbling of a professional relationship. It was the public unraveling of two reputations, built on empathy and elegance. As days turned into weeks, both stars began stepping back from the spotlight. Justin canceled a virtual panel appearance. Blake skipped a red carpet event she was previously confirmed for. The silence between them grew louder, and amid all the confusion, the original film project, the one they had both poured time and heart into, was shelved indefinitely. It's unclear whether the project will ever see the light of day. But one thing became crystal clear: when creative powerhouses clash in an age of instant access and online narratives, even silence becomes a statement. In the end, neither side emerged as a clear winner, and maybe that's the lesson in all of this. In Hollywood's most toxic feuds, there's rarely victory, only fallout. As the dust began to settle on one of the most unexpected Hollywood feuds in recent memory, the industry and its audience were left with a lingering question: what now? The creative partnership that once held so much promise had not only fallen apart but also ignited a firestorm that tested the limits of celebrity privacy, creative freedom, and the growing power of online commentary. For Blake Lively, the months following the legal turbulence brought a shift in tone. Sources close to her team quietly acknowledged that the situation grew bigger than anticipated. While no official apology or direct statement was issued, her absence from several major events and her increased privacy online suggested a strategic retreat from the spotlight. PR experts speculated that she had chosen to let the narrative cool down, naturally allowing the public's attention to shift elsewhere, rather than continuing to fight a battle that had already caused significant backlash. Yet even in silence, Blake was evolving. Those close to her noted she had become more cautious about future collaborations, especially with projects that didn't offer her both creative and narrative control. She reportedly passed on several scripts, preferring instead to develop her own material under her newly expanding production label. One insider shared she wants to tell stories, but on her terms now. Meanwhile, Justin Baldoni, though quieter in public, seemed to take a different route forward. Instead of engaging directly with the feud, he leaned more heavily into his core mission: emotional storytelling, community impact, and spiritual growth. In early 2025, he announced a new media initiative aimed at supporting young filmmakers from underrepresented communities. His public appearances returned not with scandal but with grace and a renewed focus on storytelling that heals rather than divides. In an interview months later, unrelated to the feud, Justin made a subtle reference that many interpreted as a nod to the situation. He said, "Sometimes we outgrow certain collaborations not because they're bad, but because we're no longer aligned with the energy they bring, and that's okay. Growth is painful sometimes." It was a soft but profound conclusion to what had been a hard and public falling out. As for the creator community caught in the legal crossfire, many rallied together in solidarity. Some began platforms dedicated to protecting small creators from corporate intimidation. Legal aid organizations even stepped forward, offering pro bono support to those facing similar challenges. In the end, Blake's legal response, intended to protect her image, accidentally sparked a larger movement around freedom of expression, fair commentary, and digital protection. And what about the project that started it all? The film, once described as a potential award season contender, remains in limbo. Insiders suggest it may eventually be revived, but with new casting, a different script, and without either of its original visionaries attached. A bittersweet end to a dream that once had Hollywood buzzing with excitement. So what can we learn from this? First, creative brilliance doesn't always guarantee compatibility. Even the most talented minds can clash when their visions diverge. And when passion meets pressure, even good will can evaporate quickly. Second, how stars handle conflict is just as important as the conflict itself. The public has grown more discerning. Legal responses that once silenced stories now often amplify them. In an era where audiences crave transparency, managing PR with empathy and humility can shape the outcome just as much as any legal brief. And finally, perhaps most importantly, this feud highlights how digital voices now play a central role in shaping Hollywood narratives. Creators aren't just commentators anymore, they're storytellers with impact, capable of shifting public perception, driving dialogue, and even changing how the industry reacts to conflict. In the end, the Blake Lively versus Justin Baldoni feud may not have delivered a blockbuster or awards buzz, but it gave the world something more telling: a behind-the-scenes look at the fragile dance between artistry, ego, influence, and the digital age. 2 stars, 1 vision, 2 directions, and a Hollywood lesson we won't soon forget. The feud between Justin Baldoni and Blake Lively wasn't just about a film, it became a reflection of a deeper reality in Hollywood today. What started as a creative disagreement turned into a much larger story about control, communication, and the complicated balance between privacy and public narrative in the digital age. Both stars entered the situation with strong visions and deep convictions. But when collaboration turned into conflict and conflict turned into courtroom whispers, the industry and the public took notice.